Today on the podcast, I am joined by very special guest host, Karlee Van Dyke. Karlee has been on our team for almost 3-4 years now?
3 years, yeah.
3 years. Came from a small team, came because she saw the systems, the production, the playbook that we're doing, and is one of the agents that I think has done this better than almost anyone else, is running the play that works. Following the playbook and not saying, well, I hear what you're saying, Kyle, but let's tweak it a little bit this way. And let's instead of doing it that way, let's do it all. And so I think you have done a fantastic job of saying, let me run the thing that works, and then let me tweak the parts that make sense to really fit my style, rather than let me try and reinvent the wheel. Would that be a fair assessment?
I'd say that's accurate.
Good.
100%.
So today you're on the podcast. We're going to be talking about buyer agent commissions. And specifically from the listing agent side, is that right?
Yeah.
And so as the market is headed more and more and more into a buyer's market, and buyers are being more particular, sellers are usually freaking out. Yeah. What can we do as a listing agent to help, besides just drop the price, right? What can we do to help move things along? Right?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I'm going to start with a little story. So I think back when the changes for commission came on board and buyer's agents were a little nervous about asking to get paid what they're worth. And it was in a competitive market against multiple offers, you had some leverage as a homeowner selling their home to, respond with an unfavorable buyer agent commission. In other words, lowball it. So you could do that, I suppose. Maybe not landed favorably all the time, but recently, case in point here, I have it's a special listing. It's beautiful, turnkey, and we were like the crown jewel, so to speak, out of the 4 units in the complex. So they had been dead, sitting kind of without any showings or activity. The other listings were very quiet, and I was in touch with that agent. She had 2 of them, was selling them for a client of hers who had them as rentals. So we were in touch, and she said, "Oh, it's just dead. We're never going to get these sold." Well, thanks also to the marketing team here, because they did fantastic drone shots of it, and my sellers were super amazed, so that helped. We really were able to get a lot of eyes on it because of that. So we had, over the weekend, and this is recently, last month, we had 5 showings in 2 days and had 4 offers from those showings. And the first offer, and I also think this set the precedent. So as an agent, try not to do this strategy if you are a buyer's agent. They submitted an offer at a 1% buyer agent commission. And they came in under list so that it would be the same as if, someone were asking for 2.5 or 2. So the net to the homeowner was relatively the same. And that set the precedent in my seller's eyes. Like, okay, well, if they're coming in at this, and then we went from 1 to the final offer, which was $25,000 higher, asking for 3%. Now, my homeowners wanted to offer 2. And I said, okay, we can, that's one of the options we can counter with 2. They did not want to pay any more than 2. And at the moment, the other agents had also said, hey, the other listings on the market aren't similar. They don't have a yard, they don't have a driveway, they're in the same complex, maybe bigger interior, but we really want yours. And they hadn't made offers on the others yet. So we had countered them, and we did get responses back. We did actually open escrow. The other 2 called me who did not reply, and said, my clients were really offended that you countered us. Now, likely the clients don't care. The agent was.
Someone was a little salty.
But it doesn't, at the end of the day, the point being, it drove them. That was enough to drive them to the other listings in the complex. So they just closed a couple days ago. I looked, and 2 out of the 4 offers that came to us went and purchased the other 2 units solely based on that commission counter.
Now, so there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good that you did, and there's a lot of bad that I think others did. There's probably bad somewhere in there that you did. I don't know, but that's not what I heard. But so what I heard, some things that can be interesting, is the person that probably wrote the first offer with the 1%. Was probably coming in saying, look, I'm going to help you out. And I'm going to make it an attractive offer. But that really just kind of turned your seller into like, oh, that's what we expect. So I'm curious if they would have called you ahead of time and said, hey, what does it look like? What are you looking for? And this is what I'm going to submit. And this is why you can kind of prep your seller a little bit differently. So that way your seller wouldn't go, okay, cool. All I want is now the 1 or the 2 or the 3. Right. And so that was an interesting tactic. I think it's funny that that people are getting counters and getting frustrated with it. Because I know when I bought my house, I put in an offer, and Kyle was my agent, and I asked him every day. It was like over Thanksgiving weekend. And so I was like hitting him up over turkey. I'm like, hey, did my offer get accepted? Like, whatever. And then like Monday came around, I saw it was an escrow. I'm like, Kyle, we did it? He goes, no, we're not in escrow. I'm like, it says it's an escrow. And he goes, no, they went with someone else. And I'm like, they didn't even counter me. So I think that's an interesting mode that they got frustrated with counters. And I think that's maybe they're only used to this buyer's market and they're not used to a seller's market where they're used to getting counters over and over again. How would you recommend giving a counter, whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side? Because that's part of real estate, is counters. Like,
yes,
you submit the offer and you get a counter back, I would say a majority of the time, right?
Well, in this case, the agents knew that we had 2 offers in hand on Friday and that we had 3 showings through the weekend. So the offers were essentially at netting the seller at list price. So I did share that information, and then one would come in, $3,000 higher, or one would come in $4,000 higher. But as they came in higher, so did their commission request. So at the end of the day, it was almost like a wash, but it still set the stage for my sellers wanting to come in at 2, and those that were over that, they flat out told me, we're going with another unit because you countered our commission. Now, I wanted to call their bluff because I didn't believe it. However, last week I was on a call, doing a little recap of where we're at on the market. And sure enough, I saw both of them closed, and they were the 2 other agents that wrote. So they did it. They made essentially a little bit of a fool out of us in a way, right? Because they went and took the other offer. They told me it was because of the counter with the commission. They went with another home that would offer it. And here's the difference. We didn't have inventory like we do now. So when the new changes came in with the buyer agent commission and having to get that signed, there was this thing out there where it was like, okay, if you're not going to offer the buyer agent commission of 2.5 or 3 or any at all, then we're going to go find a house that will. Well, that wasn't really plausible then, I would say back a year ago when this first came into play, because inventory wasn't there. They wanted this house. But now we have buyer agents who can seek this commission, and also enough inventory where they can go find another home just like that one.
Just like, but maybe not. And this, I'm curious how this brings up, how do I want to say, ethical boundaries, because I can very clearly see agents steering I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word steering. I'm not licensed. So,
okay. I think you can use the word.
Okay, they just can't do the thing. Well, I can see agents going, oh, I want them to buy this one, which maybe a little bit bigger inside, but doesn't have the yard, doesn't have the driveway, just for the commission, and it's kind of shitty. Mm-hmm. Right?
But I think that it's still a really, really good lesson that, to learn, where right now as buyer agents, and this is coming from a listing agent, like I am sharing this, you can ask what you want to be paid. Make a good argument, pick up the phone, have a conversation with the listing agent, and And then maybe you need to coach them too on how to speak with their sellers. Because I did. I mean, we had a really long conversation, but.
So walk me through that. How would you coach if you are a listing agent, which you are, and how do you coach your sellers on how to experience, how to handle, how to react to listing agent or buyer agent commissions?
Yeah, and this is relatively new, I'd say recently in the past couple months. It's the same thing. At the end of the day, if you're taking 0.5%, what is the actual dollar amount? And does it make sense to just ask them to come in with that? And if they're unwilling to, we keep pushing. And they're, especially if they're the only offer on the table, because I have another one that's the only offer on the table. She wanted to counter them. I'm not even going to mention the percent because it's embarrassing. And I let her know, like this, that I shared the story with what happened on the other one a couple weeks ago. And I said, do you want to drive them away? Like at the end of the day, let's break it down to the dollars. And your goal in selling this home, like for her, is to renovate a home that she already owns and moved into. And she can't spend that unless she has it. So let's get you along the way and start moving on your renovation. You're already living there and it needs to get done. And what is a few grand, even if it's 10 grand, at the end of the day, you're going to get there quicker.
Especially if it's been sitting.
Yeah. Like speak to what their motivation is and the emotion involved and help them understand the path forward. It's just a no-brainer. I did hear one of them say recently on an offer I have, and we're holding it because it is contingent. And there's a lot of risk right now accepting contingent offers, although there's a lot of them. If it's taken 90 days and you make an offer, it's going to take 90 days on yours. Like we're waiting a bit, right? So one of them came in and she just felt like she was taking all the risk, and it was a little under list and it was contingent, and she wanted to counter them on a lower commission. And also,
You're talking about your seller?
Yeah, and so I said, let's pause for a minute. Let me ask you, let's break down the numbers, right? And then I said, before I do anything, I'm going to call. She had said, well, that agent doesn't want to, those buyers don't want to go tour any other homes, because they didn't. They actually went 2 hours, where it's a unique property in that it's gorgeous and a nice area, but it has some of the original dark fixtures, and buyers want new and bright. And you can't really outstage that. It is what it is. And so they love it though. I mean, they love the home. They actually canceled all of their other showings because they want this house. So my seller had said, I don't understand why she deserves 2.5% because they only saw this one home. She didn't have to do any work except for show them this one home and cancel the other homes. And I said, that's not really for us to decide, right? We don't know what their story was prior to this, but I will have this conversation and see how it lands. It is not smart to counter them in a contract. Unless you're willing to push them away. I think there's going to be an offensive, and I kind of knew the agent. She's been around a while. Nobody wants to mess with you if you're offering in San Diego under 2.5, period, end. Like they don't. And if you're going to a listing, please don't pitch that to your sellers. Don't assume that that's the case. Unless you have multiple offers, I would say nice, but so did I. I mean, I had 4 offers in a weekend, and that is what killed it. That's what.
Be careful, because I don't want to put a percentage on air because there's things.
Pause that and delete it.
But I think what you're saying is, if you're going into a listing, make sure you prep your seller that there is going to likely be, with a majority of the offers, if not all the offers, a buyer commission.
Yes.
And the percent on that buyer commission can affect the seller's willingness to approve it or not. Because it's funny, it used to be, I don't think there was really an issue. We would say, hey, we're charging 12 bananas. That's a fake number. It's not a percentage. Yeah. We're charging 12 bananas, but we know we're giving 4 bananas away and we're keeping 8 bananas, or 6 and 6, or whatever it was. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't seem like sellers really cared who got what or what they did or any of that jazz. But now when it's spelled out very clearly and they have to put it in with their offer, it's interesting to hear sellers go, you don't deserve that. Well, it's like, well, you could pay less, but like you said, if you say, hey, I only want to give you a banana and a half. No, that's too close to percentages, but I don't know. I only want to give you 4 bananas, not 12 bananas. They could get pissed off. And with the inventory that we're seeing here in San Diego and all over the country, you got to be careful with that.
And let's go back. Like I had to remind her, we have been on market since April. We're 3 months on market. One real offer. And this is not the strategy. So we did a price adjustment based on the location within the community, because you can hear a little road noise, and the actual aesthetics on the inside don't necessarily match the latest comp that was in January, and January doesn't matter anymore anyway.
Yeah, it's
so
July now.
If you can't make those changes, then we have to get real here. And so I had to be very direct and just, I would say less direct, just honest. The more honest and just forthcoming you are with everyone you work with, and letting them know that this is where we're at, and this is what I suggest and recommend as the next step. They could get angry, let them sit on it for a couple days, because you still have the goal, like, we're hired as listing agents to sell the home.
Yeah.
This is how we're gonna sell the home.
Yep.
So let's not, bite off our nose to spite our face, so to speak, because
Thank you for using that phrase. I've used it, and people are like, don't know what you mean. And I'm like,
I mean,
this is a good one. It's anyways, keep going.
by boomers. Let's and so we can say these things, but it's true. It's very much, you have to think about it that way. And we're not arguing with, these are people that love your home. You don't have to spend $200,000 to update it. They love it as is, and this is the price they're willing to pay, and it's way more than you need, honestly, at the end of the day.
What I hear you saying is it's also, so dig down into the motivation.
Yeah.
When your listing actually gets an offer and they want to the seller kind of balks at it. So dig back into the motivation. And also where I heard you going was talk about kind of the costs of holding, right? Hey, we've been on for 3 months. The last one sold in January, which was a different decade, it seems like. January, it was 6 months ago. It means nothing now. And so now that's a multi-million-dollar property. And now you're holding it and paying on it and paying on it and paying on it. Where if you say, hey, look, I'll pay another banana, so that way I don't have to, so I don't have to hold it for 3 more months, which then we're gonna have to do more price adjustments. So I wanna kind of switch in a little bit here. When you're talking with your sellers and when do you talk about how many bananas you're gonna give to the buyer agent, and how do you kind of prep them and say, I would expect to offer 17 bananas. If it comes in less, cool. If it comes in more, let's talk about it. Like, do you have that conversation?
Yeah, at the listing appointment, kind of give a range. Like, this is where we're seeing them come in, and I will use like our closed transactions on our team as a good baseline, because gosh, how many homes are we at this year so far? I don't know, say 827 last year, right? So I'll use that stat, and I'll say out of those homes in the second half, and I touch base with our TCs, and I was seeing the average, if I'm allowed to quote it, okay? So I won't quote it, but I know what the average is.
Yeah.
So I share that, and I'll let them know it's based on our closings, and if we have a market share, then this is what you can expect.
Yeah, and so I love that. So that way when someone comes in and says, oh, I only want to give you 12 bananas, and you already told them, hey, we should expect 17.
Yeah.
They're not, the first number that they hear is from you, not from the first offer. And same thing when you say we're expecting, between 15 and 18 bananas, and someone comes in and wants 30 bananas, you're like, whoa. So you can help set that expectation. And I love using your own team's numbers. Especially when we have as many transactions as we have, it's a good enough sample size. Now, you can't use this if you're like, last year my team did 6, and out of those 6, like, we can't do that. That's not a big enough sample size. I'm curious, is that something is it public record to find that information?
No, it's not public record unless the only way to unless you wanted to call and ask the agent on the other end if they're willing to tell you. But we still wouldn't know for sure unless it were written in confidential remarks about what the concessions were. But even at that, for commission, it's not mentioned.
Gotcha.
So really, there's no way to know except for to look at our own transactions. And so I use that as a baseline and share that at listing appointments. And the other part of this is, I think the apprehension from sellers to accept a higher amount than what they expected is because we are in a market where we are seeing price decreases. So when you price decrease on the heels of that, and then an offer comes in, they still want to recapture some of that because they're still trying to digest the fact that they now had to lose out on 200. That they think that if you're doing a drastic price reduction, and I have to let them know. I know that it feels like you just lost 200,000. We never had that offer to start. This is the offer that we have, so just, and it's a tough conversation, but that's what we are built to do as agents. That's our job, and to have these conversations with them. And it was also a learning lesson for me, because when you get multiple offers and you're told this is by far the best home, I mean, one after the other, one was trying to slide in at the last minute over a weekend. This is a month ago. Like, you feel like a hero, and this is the market that we might have known the past few years, right? Listings are king, and you get multiple offers, and that's how you price it right and drive the price up, and I'm amazing. They actually were super excited. And you don't realize that, yes, but there's someone better out there, because 2 years ago, there would be no other home. We would be the most unique property on the market, hands down. And now with more inventory, you count your blessings, I guess, look at the offers and be grateful, and maybe celebrate a bit with your homeowners when you do get a solid offer. It was a good learning lesson.
So I want you to take all of your experience with real estate. I did mention early on this episode that Karlee has been with us for 3 years with a smaller team before that. And you may be going, okay, well, cool. I'm going to take all of Karlee's experience, right, in quotes. But then when I tell you she's been the top 3 of our team for 2 of those 3 years, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Your trajectory is just going up and up and up. All of that experience is more than a lot of agents that have been in the business for 15 years. So I say that not to give you a big head. I know you don't have one, but I say that for those of you listening, Karlee knows what she's doing. So I want you to take your experience from when we were in a listing heavy or listing agent seller's market. Now, as we're transitioning to a more buyer's agent, I want you to give, or buyer's market, I want you to give your best piece of advice for buyer's agents in this market to get their offer accepted and to get the most money possible. So the easy way to get the offer accepted is, okay, I'll take 0% commission and I'll give you 200,000 over ask. Well, that's easy, but I'm not trying to get easy. I want everyone to get what they deserve. So what is your tip for buyer's agents to get their offer accepted, but also get money?
Yeah, I think writing a clean offer, period. And what I mean by clean offer is, if it's a VA buyer, please check the box. If it is a loan, please put that on the contract. Like, be really clean about the offer that you write, so it is easy to explain and unpack. Secondly, I would say it doesn't hurt to pick up the phone and give me a ring. I don't know. Sometimes I do ask questions like, how long have you known your clients? And in today's market, it might have just been someone you met, and that's okay. But, I kind of want to know, have you been in an escrow before? Are you actively writing offers? How many offers do you have on the property? So before you write it, call and talk to listing agent, or if you send me the offer, I'm going to call and ask these questions. So be ready to answer them. Like, are you actively writing offers on others? Do you have other offers out there? How long have you been writing offers? Have you been in an escrow? Like, I want to know, are we going to fall out? Do we have cold feet buyers? Like, just give me some intel here, because the next offer might come in a little less, but they have, the agent has a better track record, so to speak, and I can trust them and know that they're going to close and finish. And that's what my homeowners are looking for.
Yeah. And so I love that. A year ago, when you would try and call a listing agent, I remember time and time again, I texted someone. I'm like, oh, hey, your voicemail box is full. I wasn't calling on an offer. And they're like, yeah, I've been getting blown up so much. I leave it full. I don't even want any voicemails anymore. And so now that's not happening. And now this gives you as a buyer's agent a really good time, not only to talk about your clients and to talk about your offer, but to also explain, if needed, why your commission is what it is.
Yeah.
So you as a buyer agent can help the listing agent communicate why they should accept your offer. Even though it may be a little less, but like you said, you get to really, these buyers, they love this house. Their mom lived in a house that looked just like this. The fact that it's on the corner and it has the big lot and walking distance to the pool, like that is really important to them. Mm-hmm. Hearing that as a listing agent, you're going to say, they're not looking for a house. They're looking for this house. And so I think that, again, when you tell your seller, hey, maybe it's the same price, but their buyer's commission is a little higher, but they're going to follow through. And then if we fall out and then these people, they've already written offers on 15 other properties, the likelihood that they're going to be ready and now we're an old listing, so it can snowball really quickly. What is your best piece of advice for listing agents when communicating either with your sellers or the buyer's agents about their commission?
Submit the offer submit your offer with the request. Like write your highest and best or your best offer and just submit your commission request. Like it will all be taken into consideration. Because I'll get a lot of questions, even now, are you offering commission? Like some people will just call me and go, hi, is your seller offering commission concession on this?
You're like, hi, my name is Karlee. What listing are you talking about?
And so I do. I have to ask like what address, and submit it. Submit your offer, request it. And we'll take everything in totality and look at it that way. Cool. And that's just let them.
Last thing, and I'm curious, I actually don't know the answer to this. When this whole buyer agent commission change went down, a lot of people were scared. A lot of people were like, especially buyer's agents, now listing the seller doesn't have to pay me. And so now they won't pay me. Are you seeing the majority of sales that you're seeing, are they offering to pay for some or all the sellers? Are they offering to pay for some or all of the buyer's agent commission?
Yes.
Or are you seeing a majority of them saying, nope, you got to pay it yourself?
No, I haven't seen anyone not offer it.
Cool. Yeah. Karlee, this has been awesome. One thing that I love about you, and I've shared this with you before, is you're willing to say, hey, everyone, this is what I just did, and I totally messed up. Yep. And so don't do what I did. I love that about you. Thank you for taking a minute to be on the podcast, to be a little bit vulnerable, to share about your successes and failures with this recent listing. If someone wants to get a hold of you, they're really interested, they have maybe a specific question, or they want to talk specifically about whatever, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Text or call.
What's your number?
619-639-8407.
Cool. Thank you so much, Karlee. Is there anything else you want to add before we head out?
Thanks for having me. And I appreciate being able to share the good times and the bad. And I think it's important for all to know.
Excellent.
Yeah.
See you guys next week on the Whissel Way podcast.